everyone. Welcome to PharmaPulse, the new podcast about Reuters events, where we're going to be discussing all the latest trends in the pharma industry. My name is Maria, and I'm going to be your host for today. And I'm here with Tarang Agrawal, Next Generation Customer Experience Senior Lead at Takeda. So before we get into the heart of today's discussion, why don't you tell us about yourself a little bit and about what you do in your company?
I'm the senior lead for the next generation customer experience, and my team we are dealing with a lot in terms of how do we engage with the HCPs, how do we improve the experience of them working with us, and how do we get more data and insights in terms of what they want, what they like, what they dislike, what the preferences are, so as to make the experience even more better and personalized for them. So I'm right now heading the team in the Nordics, and I'm based in Stockholm.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. So let's get into the heart of today's discussion, which is going to be customer experience. I have a couple of questions for you. So the first one is, what are some of the biggest challenges that you're facing around customer engagement?
I think one of the biggest challenge is the data, not the availability of data, but in terms of how do we bring all the data points and insights together into one place. So we have a lot of data sources, right, in terms of what the HTTPs like, what they dislike, what type of content they interact with, what kind of channels they want to be approached with. The challenge is how do we bring all those insights together to create that profile of the HCP, that this is what the digital profile of the person looks like. This is what he or she is looking for from a content standpoint. This is what the channels will like. And then the challenge for us is how do we address that insight and create that holistic experience for the HCP.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. I have a question about data later on as well. Okay, so now around this topic on medical and commercial, it's been talked about the breaking down the barriers between medical and commercial functions has been mentioned a few times in sessions. How do you see the industry actioning this and putting it into play? What do you think needs to happen?
I think the barrier exists. It could also be a perceived barrier that a lot of things that the field reps do cannot be done by the medical sales lead or vice versa, right? So it's a barrier that exists. Probably it's the industry that's complicating the process for ourselves. But in terms of what we do at Takeda, we try to make the entire process more cross-functional. So medical, commercial, even access, and at points, ITs and digital and the brand teams, they all are working towards the same goal of creating that holistic experience for the customers, right? So if you talk about brand planning, which is probably one of the key aspect of any brand strategy, we ensure that medical have a equal say in that as the commercial teams would have, as the camps would have, right? So we're trying to make the barrier smaller, but we are still far away because there is still that belief that there are a lot of things that only the medical teams should do and could do versus a lot of things that only the commercial teams can.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I've heard that as well from other people.
Yeah.
Okay, so now moving into the data question I was mentioning. You've talked about a little bit, but what role does data play in a personalized customer journey? And do you think we invest enough in the data and analytics side of business?
I think we do. We do a lot of insights generation. We do a lot of data capturing. I think the challenge is how to have a standardized process in terms of how we collect data, how we capture data, how we maintain data, right? So I think that's the challenge. Once we tackle that challenge, then the next step is in terms of how do we visualize that to create that holistic profile of the HTTP, right?
Mhm.
So I think we have a lot of data, as I said. Once we reach that stage where we are sophisticated enough to understand what the HTTPs want, be more proactive and be more predictive, I think that's probably the next phase of evolution where the pharma needs to go to create that personalized experience. And I think technologies like Gen AI and AI in general would help us accelerate that process because right now it looks like a far-fetched dream, but these technologies are there to probably reduce the curve and get us to that level very quickly.
All right. Just out of I'm curious about you mentioned about Gen AI. So there is this whole thing around artificial intelligence. I don't know if you can share with us a little bit about how your company is approaching this sort of technologies into the customer experience.
Yeah, so we are doing a lot of pilots and POCs right now because again, Gen AI is a new concept. We do not know what the full potential would look like.
Mhm.
And also from a legal and compliance standpoint, there are a lot of restrictions being a pharma company in terms of what we share, what we do not share, what data we put on these platforms versus what we do not put, right? So we are still figuring that out. But at the bare minimum, what we're doing is we're trying to leverage Gen AI for content creation in terms of how do we quicken the process of creating content. Also, how do we make it more personalized based on the inputs that we give in terms of the HTTP profiles and the engagement. We are using Gen AI or plan to use Gen AI for insights generation in terms of once you execute the campaigns, how can they simplify the insights from those campaigns for us in a few lines or a few PowerPoint slides so that it becomes more tangible. And also we are planning to use Gen AI for segmentation in terms of how do we move from the current segmentation model to a more micro segmentation model and eventually a hyper-personalized, hyper-segment model. So we are planning a few things on Gen AI, yes.
Yeah, that is wonderful. I'm sure that everyone agrees with the fact that AI is going to revolutionize lots of things, pharma. Okay, so now going into the last question, which is about omnichannel. It seems that omnichannel is quite contentious at the moment. Do you see it as more of a buzzword or an integral part of the customer experience?
I think it's more integral in everything that we do. I know the definition of omnichannel is something that a lot of people don't like in terms of the right channel at the right time, at the right frequency, right content, which makes sense. But if you look at the brand strategy or the engagement strategy, omnichannel is the core of it, right? So in principle, omnichannel is all about making sure that you understand the customer preferences, the behaviors, what they want, what they don't want, what the needs are, and then use different channels like earned media, paid media, owned media, different types of content to address those challenges, to address those pain points and move them across the adoption ladder, right? So in my opinion, omnichannel is there. It is used widely, at least at Takeda, and I don't see us moving away from omnichannel anytime soon.
Okay, wonderful. So now just to finish off, what is the one thing that you want our audience to get away from this? Like, what should they do to accomplish a really good customer experience?
I think the foundation of everything is change management, and that is probably the most overlooked aspect because we are very much keen on reaching the outcome, but the entire process of going from now to then involves a massive change management. And when you talk about change management, it's not about the process or technology, it's more about people, right? So it is changing the mindset, making them do something different from what they are used to doing. And that is not a very easy switch, right? Because people are used to doing things in a particular way for years, 5 years, 10 years. And now if you want them to do something new and in a different way, that's not a simple process. You need to have a very clear value proposition. You need to have a very clear plan in terms of how you enhance the skills and capabilities. And then you need to have a plan in terms of what that eventual outcome would look like. So I think the change management part would be the biggest learning and the biggest thing to tackle.
Yeah, thank you so much for that insight. Very good for our audience. Thank you again for joining us today. And thank you all of you for listening. Please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast and let us know what you'd like to hear next. You can also connect with us on LinkedIn at Reuters Events Pharma or visit us at our website, reutersevent.com/pharma. Thank you for joining us and we look forward to having you next time.
Views expressed in this podcast are those of individuals being interviewed and do not reflect any company, parent company, or affiliates they represent. Find out more on this topic at Reuters Events Pharma 2024, April 16th to the 18th in Barcelona, where we will align purpose, unlock innovation, and unleash healthcare's potential by uniting the greatest minds from across commercial, marketing, medical affairs, patient engagement, market access, real-world evidence, and digital health. For more information, please visit reutersevents.com/pharma/pharma-Europe.